Most people try to look valuable. They will adjust their tone, wear nice clothes, use fancy vocabulary, fix their posture, etc. But value isn't something you act out, it's something others perceive. And perception comes from tiny signals the brain reads before conscious reasoning even starts. People who possess high value understand something most don't. Status is communicated through self-regulation long before it's validated by results. Before you ever say a word, your nervous system has already made the first impression. Let's go in depth. Firstly, high-value people are okay with being misunderstood. High-value people understand a simple reality. If you try to be understood by everyone, you start performing for everyone. Instead, they focus on their principles, their long-term goals, the opinions of a small number of people they respect. Being misunderstood by some people becomes an acceptable cost. If pursuing a goal, setting a boundary, or making a difficult decision causes some people to misinterpret them, they don't automatically see it as a failure. They understand that strong decisions often create mixed reactions. What matters more to them is whether their actions align with their values and long-term direction. High-value individuals rely more on their internal compass than on constant external validation. They understand that their reputation and character are shaped over time through consistent actions, not through perfectly controlling how every person interprets them in the moment. Secondly, high-value people don't overshare. Not oversharing is about knowing when and how much of yourself to reveal, especially in the early stages of relationships, whether professional, social, or romantic. High-value individuals tend to practice a degree of restraint when it comes to personal information. This doesn't mean they are secretive or dishonest. Rather, they understand that trust and familiarity are built gradually, and personal details should unfold naturally over time instead of all at once. When someone shares too much too quickly, it can sometimes signal a lack of emotional boundaries. Oversharing might include discussing deeply personal struggles, past conflicts, or sensitive life details with people who haven't yet earned that level of trust. High-value people tend to be more intentional. They recognize that not everyone needs access to every part of their life, especially early on. Ultimately, not oversharing is about intentional communication. High-value individuals reveal themselves gradually as trust develops. This approach allows relationships to deepen naturally while maintaining personal boundaries, emotional balance, and a sense of self-respect. Over time, the people who earn their trust gain a fuller understanding of who they are, but that access is given thoughtfully rather than freely. Thirdly, high-value people limit availability. Immediate availability signals abundance, and when something is abundant, it loses perceived value. This isn't about being manipulative, it's about allocating time towards useful priorities. Those with high value typically don't reply impulsively to unnecessary conversations, reschedule their plans for everyone, ignore their mission. They go through life with intention. The psychology is obvious but needs to be stated. When access to someone feels scarce, value increases. Scarcity makes a person's presence carry a huge psychological effect. When they know your time is valuable, they approach interactions with greater care. Boundaries elevate perceived value, while unlimited access weakens it. Number 4. High-value people avoid gossip. Avoiding gossip is one of the strongest silent reputation builders. People may laugh or engage in gossip in the moment, but they deeply notice who participates and who doesn't. All in all, those who stay out of it are seen as more trustworthy, mature, and emotionally stable. Additionally, gossip often harms the person speaking more than the person being talked about. When someone repeatedly criticizes others, listeners may start to see that person as untrustworthy or insecure. On the flip side, someone who stays neutral or chooses not to participate in those conversations is usually perceived as calm, respectful, and reliable. Over time, people feel more comfortable sharing ideas or personal matters with someone who does not spread information or engage in unnecessary drama. These qualities naturally increase the respect others have for you, often without you ever needing to say anything about it. Number 5. High-value people don't compete for attention. Low-value people tend to chase attention, and it's extremely unattractive. High-value presence allows attention to come on its own. They don't force themselves into conversations, try to keep the spotlight, fake laugh just to make a quick connection. Instead, they speak with intention. When someone talks less but chooses their words carefully, what they say feels heavier and more meaningful. Noise gets lost in the mix, but selectivity of any kind garners the most attention. Number 6. High-value people give credit to others. Giving credit to others quietly shows confidence, fairness, and leadership. When you acknowledge someone's contribution, like mentioning who had the key idea or who helped solve the problem, you signal that you're secure enough not to compete for every bit of recognition. This builds trust because people feel safe working with someone who won't steal their ideas or overlooks their efforts. It also strengthens relationships, since people naturally appreciate being seen and valued. The key is keeping it simple and sincere. Just a brief, specific acknowledgement, because when you consistently recognize others without making a big show of it, people tend to respect you more, and more are willing to support you in return. Number 7. High-value people walk away from unequal exchanges. The moment you show that you aren't attached to the outcome, the way people perceive your value begins to change. When a person disrespects you, never supports you, or crosses your boundaries, low-value people either argue, justify themselves, or look for closure. If you're high value, you accept the reality of the situation. You either adjust accordingly or withdraw completely. No emotional reactions, just quiet detachment. Detachment communicates that you have options, and having options immediately shifts the balance of power. When others sense that you're willing to walk away from the interaction, they recognize that you're not reliant on it, and therefore they might start to act right, knowing they might lose you. Neediness reduces perceived status. Independence tends to raise it. All 7 habits I mentioned come down to one thing: self-regulation. When you regulate your words, your reactions, your time, and most importantly, your emotions, you ground your identity. Most people attempt to raise their value with external factors, namely fashion, articulation skills, confidence, etc., but internal stability is far more important than external. Of course, it's optimal to have both, but I would recommend you start internally so the rest becomes easier. When you stop chasing approval, you become psychologically stronger. Strong people are trusted and by extension, more respected. When you're well respected, you can influence rooms without raising your voice. Once you master these gate-kept habits, you will become exceptionally valuable.